Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be with you. I very much look forward to talking to you about the future of productivity. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. This is a very important topic. I regard this as critical as we drift into the cognitive era, the cognitive economy. Humans need to rethink their roles in our societies. Viewed the other way around, artificial intelligence will change how we interact, how we relate, how we are productive, and how we make a living. So the future of human productivity and prosperity in the cognitive economy needs to be thought about in a very deliberate way. Let me take you on a little journey and see how you feel about the evolving future. This topic is personal. Nobody is exempted. You may see me as a speaker, as a CEO, as an author, as a professor, and you might easily assume that somebody like me, especially with a little bit of gray hair, is safe from disruption. But I am not. AI is coming for the role of the professor. This is me a few years ago, as you'll see, less gray hair. I was asked by the president of my then university to please fly back to London to teach up against a smart computer game that teaches young students, undergraduate students, strategy, the art and craft of strategy. I knew what was coming because my president had a PhD in mathematics, was a former McKinsey consultant, and a very successful, very senior banker. A very quantitative profession, as you know. And of course, I knew that in the back of his mind, he was thinking about how many professors do I really need if an automated computer game can teach the students the art and craft of strategy more cheaply, more reliably? Because as you know, humans are wonderfully complex. But we are also difficult to deal with because we cannot easily be optimized. We are not machines, that is our beauty. But it can also be our pitfall because our creativity, our vision, our very human essence are hard to measure. So to a university president, we are an asset at once and also a liability because we are complicated. We develop egos. We get sick. We become political, right? And so obviously I thought in my mind he has an incentive of rationalizing me out of the picture. And I said to him, Stephen, that was his first name, I know what you're about to do. Why would I throw myself under the bus? And as I was speaking the words, I regretted them immediately. Because you know, in business schools, we always teach growth mindset. And growth mindset means you do not run away from a challenge. You understand the challenge, you adapt to the challenge, and you roll into the future. The moment that you resist and you block, you are essentially disqualifying yourself from playing a key role in that future rather than shaping it. So what you see here on the left is me coaching a team of students. I love coaching young people, coaching young leaders, coaching leaders of any age. The interpersonal contact is very important to me. What you see on the right is that smart computer game. This is just an icon. It looks very different today. And we had two cohorts of students, one being taught by me, and the other one playing the computer game for 3 days straight. At the end of the 3 days, we put them through tests with former consulting partners, very senior people, that would interview these young students and do a case study test with them. And it turned out that on the pure metric of recalling the outcome of, quiz questions, of recalling content, definitions, logic, frameworks, the computer game was already on par with me. And this is, mind you, more than 5 years ago. Where the computer game could not quite compete with we as well is when the very senior consulting partners were one-on-one interviewing the students. Why do you think that is? Because strategy is more than just concepts and logic and math. It is actually a strategic leadership framework we need to take. That means the human is very important. Reading the human facial mimicry, the gesturing, the body language, understanding how somebody's career and somebody's life is caught up in strategy is ultimately very important to very senior consulting leaders. So you can glean from this example that while we need to embrace things like this smart strategy game, but we also need to become much more aware of our human edge and where it is valuable. Our humanity creates value. The problem is that it's very hard to measure. Because it is hard to measure, what I am going to talk to you about here today is something very difficult to do. I see the future of AI as a human-machine symbiosis, and I will show you what I mean by that. Fathom for a second that we are now in a world of brain-computer interfaces. We're using AI to understand how our brains work, how neurons are connecting with each other to let us do what we're doing. We are doing this with the vast potential of medical improvements to our mental health, such as curing depression, even some kinds of blindness and some kinds of paraplegia. Enhancing our memories, right? That is also something that is of fundamental importance. Imagine what could happen if you would recall the names of everybody you have ever met. I can't. Some of you might facetiously say, maybe it's quite good that we don't remember everybody that we've ever met, right? That's a conversation for a different day. But as we go into the brains and as we have AI analyze what's inside, and as we draw that out, or as we use AI to put new stuff into the brain, which is the other objective. Remember, people like Elon Musk are telling us they want to connect our brains to our iPhones. As we do that, we connect 100 billion neurons in our heads to 340 billion, a trillion IP addresses. That's how many addresses we have under IPv6. Who is controlling that interface? Will it be innovators like Mr. Musk, or will it be you and me? So we need to think about the human as having agency for the interface with artificial intelligence. Let me give you a very practical example. This is a slide from a German presentation on the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Focus on the large box on the upper left-hand side. There is a little car in there. That car is being manufactured in somewhere in a factory in Germany. Let's understand that this could be any product. Let's assume it's like a lamp that is right here in this room overhead. That blue space is what we call a semantic space. It's a language description of data that describes what is inside the box, meaning a car being made or a lamp being made. It will tell you how bright the lamp is going to burn. Is it up to specification? Who is quality checking it? How costly is it? What's the cost structure? What should the price be? When do we have to switch out the lamp and replace it? All of those things are very, very important to somebody managing a factory. But now, of course, as we make the lamp overhead, we can equip it with modern sensors, and we can now make certain sensors on smell, on sight, on light, on sound, cheaper than 1 grain of rice. Think about that, 1 grain of rice. That means we're going to be putting them everywhere. And there will be sensors in those lamps that understand, who are you? What is your identity? How do you relate to each other? Do you look at each other? Are you healthy or are you sick? Are you tired or are you energetic? This is not science fiction, ladies and gentlemen. This is happening right here, right now, in our current day lives. That is exactly what Amazon Alexa does when you talk to it for the first time in the morning. It realizes, based on tiny variances in your intonation, your choice of language, your energy level, your speed of talking, whether you are sick or tired or healthy and switched on. It's here today. Now, Amazon and other platforms do not necessarily tell you that because they don't want to scare you, nor do they have any bad intentions. They just want to sell you better product to make your lives richer, right? But as I'm speaking, I think there is an image that's developing in your head that actually the human being, you sitting right here in this room, is becoming part of the product. We are becoming part of the lamp, part of the car. We are much more valuable than either of those things because a lamp like this is peanuts. It's maybe pennies on the dollar. But you are a wealth of information that everybody wants every day to help you lead better lives, and that's what you will pay for. So you are becoming part of the nervous system of the cognitive economy and every value chain inside of it. That is why we are saying that in the cognitive economy, we are now redefining the human to everything relationship. That is real power. That is real power on the part of the innovators, on the part of governments that are regulating it, and of course, anybody who gets your data. It should also be real power for you as you harness your own AI to determine who gets to observe you and who gets to integrate you in which ways. Cognification is 2030. Digitization is 2010. You, my dear friends, need to worry about cognification and the role of the human in your productive lives and your private lives. Let me take this to new heights. These are famous leaders in the cognitive economy. We have seen it uttered that Mark Benioff called himself the last generation of CEOs that will only be leading humans. In fact, he is saying more and more humans will be leading troops and clusters and crowds of agents, as agents augment who we are and in some ways will replace who we are. Sam Altman has called it a unicorn, which is a unicorn with one human on top, and everything else will be done by agents. That is a future that scares many people, especially the people that you are leading if you are leading people. We must be overt. We must acknowledge that the anxiety exists. Is it justified? That depends on how quickly we can get on top of this and design the solution. Remember, designing the symbiosis is exactly that, a design challenge. We should not leave that to everybody else out there, but have a voice in how we do this. Now, does this mean that we will see massive unemployment? This is a famous table from a paper authored by Oxford professors who said something akin to, by 2040, 60% of all jobs will be going away. Do we believe that that is actually going to happen? No, we don't, because we have actually done studies that show that humans are more complex, job descriptions are more complex than that. In fact, we are not yet seeing the fallout of massive unemployment. 47% of all jobs at risk? Maybe. But right now, we're seeing a steady increase in employment, probably because of all of this investment, dare I say overinvestment, in artificial intelligence. Even creative and knowledge jobs are increasing. So we are not yet here at the bottom of the hockey stick. Does that mean it's not there? Does that mean it's not in the background? Does that mean it's not going to happen? Of course not. We need to be deliberate and exercise foresight and say, we need to get on top of this problem and design it in a way that is human-centric so we can cross out the dire, black, dark future. As we lead, we therefore need to make people the center of our AI transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not as much about technology. It is not as much about money. It is not as much about energy. Of course, all of these things matter and they're the critical foundation. But at the heart of the digital transformation that is really a cognitive transformation, it is about the human being that needs to be empowered by AI rather than displaced by AI. The first thing we need to do is instill trust. We need to ask for trust. We need to give trust. We need to have procedures in place, governance procedures, management and leadership procedures that make sure that the humans that we are trying to transform into the symbiosis trust us in being responsible. It has been proven over and over again empirically that trust leads to higher economic returns. So why would we think any different in the cognitive revolution? So as you see in this equation, trustworthiness is a function of what's above the line, which is credibility. Do we know what we're doing with AI? Reliability. Can we do it over and over again? Accountability for the things that go wrong. That's why the AI law that you're passing and the AI law that just got passed in California yesterday are so critically important. And then we have to be transparent about it all. And most of all, about our goals. Are we just here to make a quick buck, to get rich quickly, overnight? Are we just interested in becoming that unicorn? Or are we actually interested in facilitating human-centric growth? If the people that we lead believe that what's on top of the line is bigger than what's underneath the line, which is our profit-seeking motive, then they will trust us. The moment the bottom here is bigger than the top, they will start distrusting us. That is the role of a leader. Then we need to make sure that people move from the bottom of this graphic to the top. I borrowed this graphic from my good friend Kai-Fu Lee, who was here just a few days ago, and this is from his book, AI Superpowers. I highly recommend the read. If you are below the line, remember, below the line in the south of this graphic, then you're in trouble. Then you're either in the danger zone, which means you are doing work that is purely analytical, purely structured, lots of transparent, well-structured data, and you are not human-centric in your daily functions. Why is that the danger zone? Because that is exactly what AI will tackle first. If you are in the slow creep zone, that means maybe you're strategic or creative in your work, but you're still not centered on social interactions. That is slow creep because you have a little bit more defensibility. Where you really want to be is the top of this graphic. That means the human veneer. The human veneer means all of us, including me as a professor with gray hair, need to work with AI as the engine of creating research, insights, information on the basis of which we can make decisions and we can govern what is happening, whether it's in the classroom or in my company. Then we put the human veneer around the AI. Why? Because as different as you or I might look or be, we are actually quite similar. We all know what it feels like to be heartbroken, to lose somebody in your life, or to be very successful, to be blissful, to be happy. We can relate to each other. That is the human veneer around the AI that we need to make the AI work for both us and our counterparts. And for me, that includes my students. I will say, however, in a little bit of a humorous disagreement with my friend Kai-Fu, I do not believe that there is a safe zone. I do not believe that there are going to be jobs that are not going to be using AI at all. Think about even the most outdoors-oriented jobs out in nature. Think about a doctor's office. There is no job that will not be using artificial intelligence because everything requires insights, the synthesis of insights, and the conclusions from insights. So even if you're a nature guide, you will rely on AI to help you understand what path to chart. Now, if we want to bring people to the top of that graphic, we need to look at future skills. And you can see what they are behind me in the upper right-hand corner. Of course, we need to know AI and big data. We need to get smart on this no matter how old or accomplished we are. Of course, we have to have technological literacy. Of course, we still need to use our heads to think analytically. But you will also see some other things in the upper right-hand quadrant, such as thinking in systems, human resilience, agility, flexibility, curiosity, and lifelong learning. Those are all skills that are going to be defensible even as the AI comes on marching in. So we are not hopeless, we are hopeful. But again, as we design the future of jobs, we need to be very conscious that while we learn the stuff on the right, the stuff that we can delegate to artificial intelligence, we also need to get better at the stuff on the left. This is the innately human skill set. But the problem is that we are not all good at everything that you see on this list on the left. Ask yourself how many times you talk to a customer service representative and they just don't understand your problem and have no empathy. Ask yourself how many times you're in a doctor's office and you walk out and you wonder why in the world this person had become a doctor. Maybe they didn't become a doctor because they want to cure people and know people. Maybe they loved the science and the challenge of solving puzzles. That is the fine line, my friends, that we need to stay on the left side of. So things like understanding our position in a room like this, self-consciousness, being conscious of self in a larger social setting is social intelligence. It is a very high grade of intelligence that is undervalued. Things like curiosity, ideation, inspiration, imagination, influencing each other. Things like system thinking, as you saw on the previous slide. Sense-making for humans. Remember, human veneer. Human interest governance. How do we develop our jobs so that we govern the AI to always act in the interest of the human and have human agency at heart? Things like human intimacy, creating relationships, creating trust, which you saw earlier. Tremendously valuable. Empathy and love. Empathy and love. You don't think of this as a productive asset. But any leader knows that if they articulate empathy and if they love the people that they lead, they are more productive. They can get more productivity out of the people that they lead because they lead with authenticity and a pure heart and not just the purpose of squeezing out every ounce of efficiency. Those things are defensible. They can be measured. But today, we don't have the right taxonomies yet to really push that, and we need to. If there are any CFOs in the room, anybody working in finance, and you're playing to US GAAP rules, accounting rules, then the problem that you will be facing is that the things on the right-hand side are very measurable, and of course they're especially measurable when you get them from machines, because machines can be more easily read than humans. And then you can capitalize any investment in a machine, and you will always prefer that side of things than the human side, which cannot be capitalized because it is way too complex and arbitrary. Accounting rules have been written to avoid that arbitrariness. We need to change that. We need to measure the innate qualities of the humans, like love and empathy and inspiration and ideation, and make sure that every CFO, every company leader understands the value that creates in the productive process. That is where we are today in the journey we're embarking on. Good examples are, for instance, Garry Kasparov, who said, look, a chess grandmaster competing against an AI, that is a competition, a race that is over once and for all. We will never ever beat another chess computer of the level like the ones that are out there now. But that's the wrong way to look at this. Why do we want to compete against an AI when we don't have to? We should be partnering with an AI, like chess grandmasters that partner with an AI as a pair, as a couple, playing against other pairs like that. Then they play chess at a much higher level. My good friend Patrick Wolf, who is also a chess grandmaster, said when he watches pairs like that of human grandmaster with a sophisticated AI computer, they play like gods. They play at a different level and plane of productivity and strategy altogether. And oftentimes it's very hard to understand what exactly is happening until the very end and the strategy becomes clear. Why? Because the human brings the vision and the strategy thinking to the machine, to the AI that can process faster than any human and open up the playing field to the chess grandmaster. Many more options, much more sophisticated chess play. That, my friends, is what we need to be doing with our jobs as well. And then even radiologists will be safe. So, as we design our value chains, we need to make sure that in every productive process of a service, of a product, of a solution, we design the human into the balance with the machine. That does not mean that every human needs to become an AI expert. Quite the opposite. We need to be differentiated about which role needs to have how much AI knowledge in it. Please do not scare people. Please do not be scared that you have to become masters of engineering in AI. That is not necessary. The functional content expertise you bring paired with AI will take you to the next horizon if you embrace the balance. I do this in class all the time with my students. I have them go through their job descriptions and I have them identify where exactly the balance is going to be in the future. Design your own job 2027. Then tell me as your manager what skills you need to be productive alongside the AI in a pair, in a buddy system to play at a higher plane of productivity. That is already being done out there. This is not science fiction. There are companies in Germany and in the United States that are already measuring that if I tell the machine to watch the human and to empower the human, how much free time do they want? How much family time do they want? When do they want to go on vacation? What is their physical makeup and their size? What languages do they speak? How quickly do they learn? It's actually a much higher productivity play when the human gets respected, and that's been empirically proven. But ladies and gentlemen, the unfortunate reality is that we do not have enough leaders that are enlightened enough to drive that work transformation, and you need to be asking for it in every company, in every organization that you are working in. This is why I'm writing articles, this is why I'm going into the media, in order to advocate for this. The future of productivity and prosperity is designed, it is not to be taken for granted. So ladies and gentlemen, please, embrace AI, work with AI, do not reject AI, but be very clear that this is a human-machine symbiosis that is designed and not defined by everybody else out there. Ask for the right symbiosis design and the future shall be yours. Thank you very much, and please connect with me online. Thank you.